Hello and welcome. I'm Grandmaster Dennis Borsch, and today we're going to discuss Wesley So's Endgame Virtuoso, which actually clinched 3 wins for him in this tournament at the US Championships. So this game is going to feature a bishop endgame where Wesley faced Lenderman. So seemingly nothing special, even though there are plenty of pawn weaknesses in black's position, it's quite difficult to come close to those. However, Wesley realizes that ain't so. Bishop c4, putting a bit of pressure on Alex Lenderman. Now there's no move such as bishop e8 because the king can come on in, and then there's some pressure on the dark squares and on f6. And if bishop c8, immediately white can go bishop b5, pick up the pawn, and have true winning chances. King c6, bishop e2, king d6, bishop d1. And believe it or not, black is already in a Zugzwang situation. He has to contend with threats over the a4 pawn, and if the bishop moves, then this king will run in and attack the pawn on f6. King e6 would lose to bishop g4 check takes, and king d5, king c5 would pick up a pawn and lead to a winning pawn endgame. Not least, there's the other threat of going king f5, king g6, king h6, so black is virtually forced to play this move, f5. But that means that black already has 2 pawns on the dark squares, which gives Wesley real winning chances. King d3, bishop b5, king c2, bishop c4, king d2. Just pinpointing the fact that there's always a threat on a4, and you'll never get the chance to get your king to d5 because there'll be a bishop f3 check. b5. But in this case, white will have this extra option of walking up to a3, set up this threat on f5, and with 2 threats on f5 and a4, and with the king already stationing on a3, there's a very good chance for Wesley to put pressure on Lenderman. Winning, not so much, but with both players in and under 5 minutes, white gets true winning chances. King c1, the king is on the long journey towards the a pawn. Bishop c2, making sure the king won't cross over. Bishop d7, king c4, b5. Good defense by Lenderman, making sure that this pawn won't fall. King a3, king a5, bishop d1. Now, this is the position that is hard to understand what was going on mostly in this game. However, the truth is, Wesley So was trying to make sure that Lenderman will misplace his pieces when he's going for the final second Zugzwang position. Bishop b5, bishop f3, bishop d7. And here I have to stop. This is a critical position as this is going to repeat once more. Now, if it would repeat 3 times, it would be proclaimed a draw. So remember this one. If you see this 3 times, then probably Lenderman missed an opportunity to claim a draw. Bishop h5, bishop c6, bishop e2, bishop b5. Obviously, white does not want to exchange. Bishop f3, bishop d7, and we have the same position. So this is the second time. Now there is one difference. So if we get this position, but it is black to move, then that isn't considered the same position as this one when it was white to move. Bishop d5, king d5, bishop f7, bishop c4, just marking time, seemingly. Now bishop f3 is going to get on the board, but it is black to move, so it is not a draw. Bishop b5, bishop d7, and here comes Wesley's big plan to remaneuver this bishop to c2, set up the threat of bishop c2 and hitting the a4 pawn and the f5 pawn simultaneously. Bishop b1, bishop e6, and h5. And again, black is stuck because he has to defend the f5 pawn and the a4 pawn at the same time. Now the king cannot move because then this guy is falling. And if you play c4, that will become a weakness, and 3 weaknesses is more than enough for winning chances at this level. So Lenderman actually chooses the best move, plays bishop e8, and hopes to create a passer on the h file. 6, bishop h7, king b6, running back so the f-pawn won't promote. f5, king c7, king a4. So right about here, Lenderman has about a minute versus Wesley's 3 or 4 minutes, which means that he still has to be accurate with very low time, and he's been playing accurate chess for a while. King d6, bishop g6, f6. If you have a passer, push him. h5, king b5, h4, bishop f5. Cutting off the king and also planning to push the f-pawn. Bishop g2, f7, takes, takes, c4. And here there is a bit of a miscalculation by Lenderman. He could have played this very strong move, bishop e6, which would have been stronger, because in endgames, usually you want to stop your opponent from improving their pieces, because white will no longer be able to stop this king from coming back. Take and come back, and white does not have enough time to get a winning position here. King takes f7 is still within drawing margin. However, after king d6, these squares are taken, and it is much more difficult to defend with a lone bishop, when in the other case it was much easier because the king was already involved in the action. King e8, king c7, making sure that there is no passing over the d file. Bishop g2, b4, bishop f1, still very accurate by Lenderman. However, bishop b5 was a big mistake. Here the patient king e7, c6, bishop e2 would have held the draw, because in case of king b8, king d6, c7, black is just in time to notch up the b5, that is the b4 pawn, and after takes, the king goes to b5 and picks up the pawn. But it is very difficult to defend a position for 92 moves and then still make a perfect move. This was the 92nd move, but this is already losing because this allows moves such as king b6 winning time. Bishop a4 trying to avoid that, but it's too late now because this pawn is unstoppable. c7, bishop d7 takes, and here king b7 is the winner move, making sure again that the king can't come any closer. That square is protected, and after b5, b6, Wesley So wins the game in style. And this is the typical way how grandmasters squeeze from a minimal advantage the whole point. Typical affair, and that is why Wesley So is now in the lead in the US Championships with 3 out of 3. Thank you for watching.